Hello and welcome to the Foxcatcher Preview Show. My name's Julian Vallance, joined, not in the studio, but on location, Sin City, Nick Ashman. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Good to be back from a nice little break. I went up to Port Douglas with the wife and kids and the extended family, and I've now got the second best tan on this show.
Yeah, no, very good. I'm sure it would have been beautiful weather up there, no doubt. Now, you're not allowed to swim up there because of the jellies, the stingers. The stingers get involved.
Well, you can actually. You can this time of year, and there's always lots of pools around as well. So we found a way to get through it, but my wife was petrified about crocodiles in the ocean. We did a tour. Here's a tip for you. If you ever go up there with your partner, do the crocodile tour at the end because they remain freaked out, or mine did anyway, freaked out about the whole trip. Crocodiles popping up anywhere. We thought there was one in the dunny at one point.
Okay. Must have been one hell of a big dunny, but anyway, we'll move on. Let's get to what we're talking about here. It's Caulfield, obviously, in Victoria. So we're going to start with what we usually always start off with this show, and it is the track intel. All right, so track Caulfield, our 4 metres the entire circuit here, punters. Now, it's soft 5 right now as we speak Thursday morning, Nico, but I think we're probably going to get deeper into the soft range. Thursday's okay weather-wise. Friday, 1 to 5 mils expected. And here's the kicker. Saturday, 5 to 10 mils expected. Now, if we get the high range of both Friday, get the 5 mils, and then you get the 10 mils while we're racing on the Saturday, then no doubt I think we're in that 6-7 range. If you get the lower end, I think we're still going to be playing around a soft 5. So I think soft 5 to 7 is probably where we sit for Saturday. Wind, really important. We speak about this a lot at Caulfield. It's a 25 to 35 kilometre northerly wind. What is that? Well, it's a headwind into that chute. So we know from experience, we talk about this a lot, Nico. Jockeys in particular are the ones that probably take the initiative or don't take initiative when this northerly wind kicks up. And you see them actually sit up and they want to actually not be the horse that usually is the one facing that breeze. So just be mindful of that. Obviously, the times are going to be a lot slower from the shoot races, probably compared to the circle as well. But tempo is going to be probably taken out of those races more than what we'd usually expect at Caulfield. So how does that set up for what we think is going to happen throughout the day in terms of the intel? I think even for the shoot, so that's 1,000 to 1,200 metres, I think even worse than midfield, okay, not an issue there, which is very different to usually a hard deck at Caulfield. You want to be on speed, you want to be leading, especially in the shoot, but that changes for these conditions on Saturday. Circle, again, even, think you can probably win from anywhere. Just back mark as a low percentage play, but that's just about the norm for any track that we get to. Do you want to add to anything else from an intel point of view of Caulfield? Because I think the wind is the most important. We don't get too much of an effect if it's, say, at Moonee Valley or a Sandown, but Caulfield is the one that actually does impact how these races are run and won, and it is that northerly wind on Saturday.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. I just find sometimes the best spot to be is just behind the pace at Caulfield when there's a northerly breeze because the pace comes out of the race, so it can be hard for those back markers to get in just from a, if they're conceding 3 or 4 lengths to a horse that's had cover in the run in behind the pace, if that horse in behind the pace gets a split at the top of the straight, they've got all the energy in the world. They've got a full tank of petrol pretty much to hit the line as fast as they can. So back markers generally need front runners or on-pace horses to be tiring in order to pick them up, usually, unless you've got an exceptional turn of foot that's head and shoulders above your rivals. And so with this northerly breeze and the pace coming out of races, just be wary about trying to find a back marker that's definitely going to get cover. I find the best spot to be is stalking the speed.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Also, the other fact that we need to add into this as well is if the rain does arrive on race day, we know that inside can chop out. So if you've drawn 1 to 3 and that rain does hit, then that may impact and jockeys actually might want to avoid that area. We don't know that's going to happen yet, but just have that in the back of your mind, especially there are some favourites that have drawn low, especially later in the day. I think that could impact their prices as we go on. Let's get to the feature race, the race for this week at Caulfield, Nico. It's the Bletchingly Stakes over 1,200 metres. We've got a points bet market here. Let's look at this. It's race 8. So Baraqiel's your clear-cut favourite. Going to talk about him in depth. Bridal Waltz outstanding. Obviously led last start at Flemington, slowly run race, zipped home really good, beat a horse called She's an Artist. New York Luster's in the market as well, was pretty good first up. Recommendation won this race last year. The blinkers go back on. I think we'll talk about where we think he's going to be from a map perspective. And the only other horse probably at single figures is a horse called Kin, who can sort of mix its form, but its Caulfield numbers are probably better than anywhere else on the planet. Let's get to the map here, Nico, because I think this is where you identify whether you're going to be with Baraqiel or you're not going to be with Baraqiel. And we'll talk about him a little bit later. But in terms of the map perspective, as I said, blinkers go back on recommendation. I expect this horse to lead. Now, Apache Song's a horse that's first up and has been able to lead in the past, but I think the way this race sets up, Apache Song will probably want to be forward. There's no doubting that. But then I think at some stage early in the race, I think recommendation crosses Apache Song. Bridal Waltz, I think, sits forward. I know it led that Flemington race, but that was a slowly run race, but I still think it's got the ability to sit forward. Baraqiel's the one here, mate. So let's talk about this now. I've got Baraqiel 3-back rail because I think Apache Song gets crossed by recommendation early doors. Do you think Baraqiel can have the early speed to get leaders back?
I think he can. It's just a question of how forward he is. Team Corstons have been out in the media during the week saying he's got a bit of improvement to come. So you might be right, 3-back the rail, but I would think from there his chances diminish significantly. The blinkers go back on recommendation, who won this race last year, and you'd think he'll go straight to the front. If you're fair dinkum on Baraqiel, you're going to try and follow recommendation, I think. Now, whether or not he's got the early toe and whether or not they want to be there are two different things. But I think he's got enough early pace to be in the mix and to be third defence. But I'm just a little bit cautious. First up off a long break, he had an arduous preparation last time and he did a great job. Don't get me wrong. I just wonder if they're going to sort of just be a little bit more cute on him than where you would ideally like to see him if you're a punter.
And I think this is the key, is the intent. So absolutely agree with you. If he's third or fourth up, rock hard fit, he's going toe-to-toe with recommendation, to be honest. He wants to absorb that pressure. But he's off 245 days. He's drawn one, and I just sort of think they go, well, this is not the grand final. The Bletchingly Stakes is not the race that we've came here to win to come back into the prep. So it's about we don't want to bust him first up. And if that's the case, he could possibly end up third up and you're a third back rail. And you're 100% right. That becomes his issue then. That becomes his Achilles heel if he is third back rail because it becomes really tricky. New York Luster's another interesting one just from a map perspective as well, Nico. I've sort of got it out wide there because I think the decision has to be made that they either roll forward or they go and take the medicine and they end up sort of back with Inhibitions and Kin and those kinds of horses from that gate. And that's why I've sort of got it pegged there. So I'm not suggesting it could end up wide. And we also talk about the shoot races at Flemington. 1,200 metres being wide is no issue whatsoever with just that one turn. It is probably on Saturday though if you're facing that northerly breeze by yourself. Would you go forward or would you go back, New York Luster?
I think you've got to go back to some degree. There looks to be sufficient pace in this race. Obviously, Bridal Waltz led in a slowly run race, but 3-year-old this time of year probably will go forward and be, on pace without actually leading, I'd suggest. I think probably Jamie tries to grab Ben's back at some point in the run, the Mellums I'm talking about here. New York Luster, the perfect horse for it to follow into the race is Bridal Waltz, I would think. I think Ben will probably keep Bridal Waltz off the fence with a bit of cover. He'll pop out coming around the home turn at about the 500-metre mark. And I reckon that's sort of when Jamie will probably has to get out a fraction earlier. She won't want to push the button into the breeze, but she'll look to just grab his back for 100 metres and then try and beat him in the home straight. So it's a tricky map, I think, for New York Luster, but I do think the horse is going well enough to overcome it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's our map. We sort of had those other horses like Kalos Inhibitions and Kin. I think they probably take the backside of a horse like Yellow Sam is how I see that map. In terms of the race, I think you work out your starting point, as always, is your favourite and what you're going to do with Baraqiel. And I just think there's enough knocks with that 245 days. We'll actually talk a little bit more about Baraqiel later in the show in terms of is going to be our pin the tail horse and where we try and identify the starting price of a horse. And that is what we're going to do with Baraqiel. So we'll go into a bit more depth about him. Is there anything that you want to play in this race very quickly?
Look, I'll make a couple of points just for the viewers. Recommendation won the race last year, as we said, probably leads again. The question mark is he going as good? The short answer is probably no, but he was off 24 weeks, Jules, coming into this preparation, and he's now blinkers back on fourth up. You can make a case to say that he was probably not fit enough. We're talking about Baraqiel not being fit enough. Granted, he's off a slightly longer break, but probably Recommendation was a bit behind his usual forwardness, if for lack of a better term, when he resumed this preparation. Maybe this was his goal all along, a nice little winter to culminate in the Bletchingly Stakes and go back-to-back. You've got to remember he's 4 from 5 at Group 3 level. Talking about Bridal Waltz, I love backing 3-year-olds against the older horses when they're coming off a career peak. And that's what this horse has pretty much done. New York Luster, she's going really well. EJ, we know what a great trainer is. This horse has been placed really well. I just think the Godolphin trio probably up against it a bit. They're going to be back in the field. Yeah. Kin's a horse that I just can't catch. So now that I'm putting the line through her, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And they a few of these come out of that John Monash race first up, and you talk about that New York Luster, Recommendation led. Kalos and Kin were sort of further back. They were running through the line, but probably out of those horses, you'd probably say, well, New York Luster was the best effort first up. The blinkers do go back on Recommendation. So it is going to be interesting, but that is the Bletchingly Stakes for this week. All right, let's get to my Victorian set here now, Nico. So I'm going to go through the horses that I've backed or I will back on race day. I'm going to start us off with race 1. Now, this horse is not going to be the best horse that comes out of this race. I think in 6 months' time, there'll be horses like Cherish Me, Ole Dancer will be better horses. But I just want to be with the horse that might be right spot, right time, right conditions. Race 1, number 4, Cannyworth. I want to back it each way, sort of that $10 mark, I think, with PointsBet. First up off 158 days, went to a Bendigo Maiden. It was a really heavy track here, Nico. It's not a massive number, but it was a solid enough number. Pretty strong through the line, which I liked. I just think it's going to be fitter than the rest. Now, Cherish Me comes off 154 days. Ole Dancer comes off 140 days. I don't particularly like horses first up 1,200 metres, in particular young horses as well. And in particular, add to the extra layer that I'm going to talk about right now, a possibly soft 6, soft 7 track where it can take the guts out of you. This horse is going to have the fitness edge. I think if this gets wetter and wetter, I'll really want to drive right into Cannyworth because I just think it's going to have the fitness edge on the others. As I said, I don't think it's going to end up the better horse out of all of them, but you don't have to be on a certain occasion, and that's why I'm with Cannyworth in the first. And in race 5, I want to be with number 5, Bossy Bonita. So this horse was first up, Sandown, carried 59 kilos off 102 days. Craig rode it, was really strong, outstanding sectional. Look, it was a slowly run race, but I love the last 600, 400, 200, smashed through the line. I love that as a prep run. We talk about this a lot, Nico, that what kind of run do you want first up that then builds your platform for a perfect prep? Well, it's that softly run, first up run that then you can explode through the line, and that's what Bossy Bonita was able to do. I love the fact that it drops to 54.5 kilos here. I think it's an acceleration horse, which I talked about because of that last 400, 200 that it's got in it. If it does get really wet, I'm not too worried about that. I think the soft track's fine. I think it did run on a really heavy track, and the form guide will say it failed, but it was just in the wrong postcode. It was 40-1. Tatum Bull was on, just missed the boat, but it was outstanding through the line, so I've got no issue with wet track. I want to be with Bossy Bonita. So my 2, race 1, number 4, Cannyworth each way, and race 5, number 5, Bossy Bonita. And this is your opportunity to say, what the hell are you doing? I've looked at these races, and there's better horses in these races.
No, don't be silly. Look, I don't have a firm opinion on race 5. I like what you've done in race 1. I landed on 2 different horses, but I've got the same thought process. Yeah. I'm with you. 2-year-olds first up at 1,200 metres is always a big risk. They usually need a fitness run. Granted, we are at the back end of the season. They're almost free, some of these horses. But I like the signature scent form line. I thought the race rated pretty well. I know they weren't overly strong late, but 4 lengths above standard. We'll talk about, obviously, review on our review show on Monday. I think the setup's good for these horses now. There's 2 of them that come out of that race. Shy Star was first up going into that signature scent race. Had a better last 200 metres than Thanks Gorgeous, who does claim below the minimum here. We've spoken a bit about that on our review show in the past, particularly in winter months when you get a wet track. Claiming below the minimum is always an advantage. I could easily back both of those and probably have a peanut on yours. I think you can back all 3 of them and just back the fitness and the horses that are Johnny on the spot. As you said, we're not marrying them. We're just taking them out on a date this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. We make sure we return them safe and sound after it, and we won't put posters up on our wall. We're heading to a break. We'll be back. It'll be Nick's New South Wales set. Righto, Nico, your time to shine here now. New South Wales, obviously we're at Randwick this week. Starting point, what's the weather doing? And then what are you going to tell me about the track and how it's going to play? Because the punters want to know. Your information's been great. Last series, it was very good. You were putting them in the right direction. Can you please continue to do that?
I can only do one's best. That's all one can do. Beautiful sunny day here in Sydney, about 18, 19 degrees as I look outside the office window. We're going to have the same conditions on Friday, so we should get from that soft 6 that we currently are, around the soft 6, back towards that good range. The problem is, similar to Melbourne on Saturday, we've got 3 to 9 mil forecast. So depending on how much of that we get, depends on how far into the soft range we get. We could be anywhere from probably a soft 5 right down to a soft 7. If we're really unlucky, we might end up as a heavy 8. But I reckon if you do your form on a genuine soft, just be prepared that you might need a horse that can handle a dry track. That's where you got to go. So it's a tricky one. Now, in terms of how the track's going to play, this is the info that I've got, and I'll read it out to you. It'll be through the middle with lanes 3 to 7 probably going to provide the bulk of the winners. You should be able to win from anywhere in terms of where you settle in the run. You can lead, you can stalk the pace, and you can even come from off the pace. The key is to not go too wide around the home turn is what I'm being told, Jules. So you don't really want to be more than 3 wide. As we know, at Randwick, when that fence is right off, you can come 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10 wide around the bend and still be right in play. It's not going to be like that on Saturday. The fence isn't completely cast. You sort of want to be just coming through those middle lanes. So horses will be able to creep up the inside, and you might even see a couple of winners around lanes 1 and 2. But that superior ground and the bulk of the winners probably going to come in lanes 3 to 7, my friend.
Beautiful. Okay, so that's good intel for Randwick with that rail out, how it's going to play. As we see, we want to try and always play into the high percentage spaces, and hopefully Nico has put us into those directions. All right, let's get to your New South Wales set, Nick, and it's obviously all going to be at Randwick. You've got 3 horses for the punters. We start off in race 4. What are we doing here?
Yeah, just before I start off as well, if you're looking for a jockey to follow, Adam Hieronymus, the hippo, he's going great guns at present. He normally rides around 12 or 13%. From his last 100 rides, he's at 22%. He's beating market expectations by 38% recently. So he's definitely one you can follow. And we've got Hippo on 1 or 2 of our horses. Let's get into the tips. Race 4, number 6. This is an interesting runner, this one. Jim and Greg Lee put the polish on Glorious Moments. It's not often they have a 2-year-old runner. I couldn't tell you the last time they had a 2-year-old runner. This horse is obviously 3 now, but he ran in a Pago Stakes back in March 2024. He was beaten nearly 30 lengths by Dublin Down, and he was ordered to trial again. He had 65 weeks off. He was gelded. He returned to Canterbury a couple of weeks ago, or in the middle of June, I should say, and he was just really good there, Jules. Overall time was pretty good. His last 200 metres ranked, I think, 4th for the meeting or 2nd for the meeting. His last 200 metres was 4 lengths above standard as well. There's just a little bit something about him. Obviously, he had a lot of talent for this stable to take him to the track as a 2-year-old. Clearly, he needed to be gelded to show his best. He showed his best. I just feel like at the figures that I'm looking at, if this horse was trained by Waller or Waterhouse or Snowden or one of the big guns, he'd probably be a fair bit short on that $4.20 quote. I reckon he'd probably have a 2 in front of his name. So he goes in as the first bet of the day. He's also got a weight advantage over some of his more high-profile rivals, if you like. Now, the other one comes up in race 7. Been a bit of a money munch. As you know, I do a bit of work for Proven Thoroughbreds. Little Cointreau is his name. Can you believe that this get-back run-on horse, who's had 20 starts, is having his first run ever at Randwick? Absolutely amazing. He drops in grade. He's up in weight. Look, there's a few horses drawn wider than him that'll go back behind him. So I've sort of got him settling maybe with midfield, a touch worse than midfield. And I think that's an ideal spot for Little Cointreau. Hippo's on board. We spoke about his great stats. What about Joe Pride, his trainer? 22% strike rate in recent times, beating market expectations from his last 100 runners by 42%. He's absolutely airborne, Joey. And this horse, 3 of his 4 wins. He's not a prolific winner with only sort of 4 wins from 20-odd starts. 3 of them have been between 1,250 and 1,350. And, of course, Saturday's race is over 1,300. So I think Saturday's got to be the day, 7-day backup for Little Cointreau. And if nothing else, maybe a 1x2 bet or just have something on the nose and hope it is the day for him. And the last of the bets comes up in the last race. This is Miracle Spin, race 10, number 3, off a 2-month freshen up, which I thought was quite interesting for this galloper. He's placed 3 from 5, including a win when first up. And this isn't a traditional spell, but it gives an indicator that he does go quite well on the fresh side. One of those unplaced runs first up was last preparation when he resumed in a Group 3 race, which is decisively tougher than what he faces on Saturday. If you go back just 3 runs, you remember when we were doing our review show, Jules, before we went on our break, we're talking about Les Vampires, or as we say in Australia, Les Vampires. Now, Les Vampires was running really good numbers. Only got to go back 3 runs for Miracle Spin to see that when he came off his last freshen up, which was about 3.5 weeks, he ran over the 1,800 metres here at Randwick, and he was super, running a great number behind Les Vampires. So I think if he can get back to somewhere near that number, he's a great each-way chance in this. He was an easy trial winner recently, and I don't read into trials too much. I'm a bit like you, but I did go back through his form, and I noted the only time he'd ever won a trial prior to this recent one was ahead of his debut, which he won up at Newcastle. He handles wet tracks. He handles dry tracks. Just think he's a very good each-way bet to close out the day.
Beautiful. Love it. And I especially love that one in the last. And we might even give just a bit more information for the punters out there on Saturday morning, because we might just have a little bit more intel on that horse, Miracle Spin, because we might be able to dictate how those tactics are for that horse in that last race as well. That's been Nico's New South Wales set. Righto, Nico, we get to the end part of the show here, but before I do, just for the new viewers out there, make sure you hit us up on their Foxcatcher social channels. There's a few little pieces that we've done. Graham Begg, the evolution of him in Victoria since 2016 and the numbers that he's racking up, especially in January 2025. Did a piece also on apprentice jockeys in Victoria probably 4 or 5 years ago. That was an absolute cheat code in terms of being able to bet. Are those apprentices at that level right now? We've done some work on that as well. Plenty more stuff as well. Nico will throw some more stuff into that as well. So make sure you check out the socials. There'll be stuff on Saturday morning as well. Hopefully it helps. Let's get to a segment they call Snap or Don't Snap, Nico. So obviously the idea here is the early price right now for a certain horse. Do we snap it? Do we take that price? Do we think it's actually going to shorten? Or do we say to the punters, just hold off? I think you're going to get a better price at some stage throughout betting. Kick us off here, I will. Caulfield, race 5, number 7. The horse is Nutsi. It comes across from Adelaide. It is about $3.20, $3.30 with points bet at the moment. Clear-cut favourite in this race. Numbers are outstanding. You go to Murray Bridge last week, last start, and it was a very big number, +6. No knock there whatsoever. Ran through the line. Really good positives there. It was on a soft track as well. I'm just slightly worried about it at 1,200 metres here, and I think this is going to be probably a fast-run race as well, and whether that's just going to take the guts out of this horse. I think at some stage you're going to get better than that 320, 330 on offer at PointsBet. So I'm not saying this horse can't win, but I'm happy that I think you should just be holding off. You'll get a better price about Nutsi. And we go to race 8, the Bletchingly Stakes. We spoke about this horse a lot, but currently $3 was a little bit shorter. It's just slightly drifting out to that $3 mark. I speak of Baraqiel. And for all the reasons that we spoke about with the map, off 245 days, just the map for me. I think it possibly, if Apache Song gets crossed by recommendation, it's in a world of hurt. It ends at back 3-back rail. Off that 245 days, I just don't think it's going to be fully screwed down. If the rain comes as well, inside lanes possibly off, going to be hard to navigate a path to get to the outside and where you'll probably want to be. So Baraqiel, I'm against it at $3. I think you'll get a better price. So they're the 2 horses for me that I'm saying to the punters out there, don't snap. Righto, Nico, let's get to Pin the Tail. And as I just mentioned, the horse in depth, and it's Baraqiel.
Yes.
You kick us off. As I said, current price right now, PointsBet, $3. Was a little bit shorter, sort of Wednesday night, sort of was kicking around $2.70, $2.80, and now $3. It might have actually kicked back into around $2.80 as we're filming this right now. So it's holding its price, Baraqiel, at that $2.80, $2.90. What do you want to do with it?
I think he'll drift. I think he'll do 2 things. I think he'll drift. He'll get right out the gate, and then he'll just trim up a little bit late. I landed on 325. I could have got him to sort of 350. I was tempted to go higher. Inside gate, long break. If he's going to hold leaders back, he's probably going to have to get used up, and that's going to leave him vulnerable late. The positives, though, that probably keep his price, I think, with a 3 in front of it, is the fact that you've only got to go back 2, 3 and 4 runs to see some pretty big numbers in this horse's form. And it's not like we're going back 12 months and, 7 or 8 runs or 9 or 10 runs. It's still pretty recent. The only real query is that long break and where he's at fitness-wise. In terms of a recent good number, or at least in his form guide, you don't have to go far back. It's just a fair while ago. So it's the break, that's the query. 325 for me. I'll hang my hat on that. As I said, I could have got him probably anything up to half a point longer.
Yeah, it's a really good point you mentioned, and it's probably those 2 big numbers at Moonee Valley. He smacked War Machine in a benchmark 84, and then he came out the next start and won a Group 2 race, and both lit up in terms of the rating. So the figures are there, and if the big guys want to play and want to trust that, well, that's what will anchor him down 100%. But I've got him $4 for those reasons that I mentioned. So you're $3.25, pin the tail. I'm $4. If the punters and the viewers out there want to have a pick, make sure you put it added to the socials. You can have a go. We might even have a prize pack for you if you do salute and get it closest to the pin. The PointsBet starting price. Let's get to our plays of the day, mate. I'm going to kick us off. It is against Nutzi. I'm race 5, number 5, Bossy Bonita. I think it was outstanding first up with a big weight, drops to 54.5 kilos. I think it just gets a stalking position. Love it in these kinds of conditions. I just love the first up number, and I love the horse being able to put some big numbers last prep up at Sandown over 1,400 metres. Stays at 1,200 metres, but I just love what it did. I love an acceleration horse at this kind of weight. I want to be with Bossy Bonita. That's my best of the day. Yours?
Yeah, race 4, number 6, Glorious Moments. I'm really keen to see how this horse goes. He was great first up. When he got out, he got the right run at Canterbury to win first up as a gelding, but just in that last 50, 60 metres, he was pulling away from him. I reckon if he got out sooner, he wins by a bigger margin. He does have the synthetic hoof filler in for the first time, which I know is not a massive negative, but it's just something to keep an eye on and might explain why he's sort of 5 or 6 weeks between runs. But I get the feeling that he's got well above average ability. I want to follow him. I think he's in the right race on Saturday, and he's my play for the day.
Beautiful. So that's Nico's play of the day. My play of the day, as you've mentioned, you got those 2. You might be able to mould them up. And then you could end up maybe like up in Point Douglas, like what Nico was last week, chasing crocodiles.
Defending crocodiles.
Yeah, absolutely. And licking toads. No doubt you were doing that as well. Thank you very much for your time, mate. It's been a pleasure. See you next week, pal.
Mwah.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.